There we go. Hello, I'm here today with Gontse, and we are interfacing pyramid energy. Holy cow. Today is the 8th of the 8th, Lion's Gate, as they say. And if you want more number signs as cause for joy, 2024 is, of course, also 8. So it's a triple eight, Kate. Maybe into signs and wonders, maybe you're not. Either way, here's a woman who is playing with them proficiently. Her poetry is resonating with, from what I can see, a beautifully strange audience of New Age to Bible loving folk. These are just the kinds of intersections I love. And after listening to some of the material of Pyramid Energy, I reached out so to find out some more of her story. And here we are. One day, the video The Return of Christ Consciousness popped up in my feed. I double clicked, recognized the accent immediately, and was joyed to learn that I live in the same city as the person speaking. Not finishing the video, a few days later, something pinged me to complete it. I had just come off a call with a church elder called Keith, and we had been walking through the story of the Samaritan woman at the well in John's Gospel. After the meeting, I switched on Gontse's return to Christ consciousness whilst commuting to the next place I had to be. And wouldn't you have it, this is the exact piece of scripture she then drew from. I noticed and then largely ignored these and other signs, thinking to myself that quite arrogantly I already knew what all signs point to. I was given a few more prompts, now stronger, to reach out. So today we are going to lean into synchronous strangeness, coincidence amplification together. We are here to find out about Gontse and her process with pyramid energy. Personally, I think it exceptionally interesting territory when speech becomes testimony, when poetry addresses the you, and when we are intentionally playing and interacting with the kinds of creative intelligences and a-causal connections that reveal themselves in the artistic and creative process, when we open ourselves to exploring the significance of the coincidental to our lives, and when we give attention to the apparently accidental. Somewhere here is a skill set that is tricky, but worth cultivating. I'm hoping Gontse can give us some insight with regard to that. So you, dear listener, see now I'm addressing you directly. Wherever you are on the spectrum of New Age to biblical or even New Age biblical, will find much of interest here. I'm excited. Gontse is a poet, a highly intuitive artist, a steward for the channel Pyramid Energy, and today we get to hear her story. So thank you for being here with me today, and welcome to Holy Cow.
Thank you so much, Daniel. I'm actually going to listen to this later, hopefully, and take down some notes because I've never heard the channel described like this. And the audience as well. And no one's ever called me a poet. So
Epic.
thank you. Thank you
Awesome.
very much.
Love to do it. Well, that's a I'm reaching in a sense to just get like a sense of the audience. So that could also be something that we kind of get a feel for in the conversation. Who who you feel yourself to be speaking to, and then who has resonated with your work, and the who. So does it feel good to call yourself a poet? I guess is a question.
So I suppose a poet is one who writes poetry, and I am a
Yeah.
poet. It's just that, you know, pyramid energy for me has been such an amazing experience. Because I have a full picture of where I was when I made the first video. And I didn't know what I was going to find, and I didn't even know how large it was going to feel to me. And so the audience itself has been a huge surprise, but also a testimony to what you can find if you just follow your heart and what can find you. Because I always knew, and I mean, just linking back to the Return of Christ consciousness video, I mean, that day was crazy. But it's like, following that star, you know, the star when Jesus Christ was born. It appears it appeared in the sky. And again, I don't know the Bible well, you know, these stories just pop up for me, but it's like knowing something's coming and following the star, and then it turns out to be everything it's promised to be. And you feel the promises in your heart. You don't really have a full picture of what it is. The people on pyramid energy, you know, I always had this conflict in myself around my art. You know, it's only, again, recently I started calling it art, because for a long time it was healing. It was many things for a long time. And now I'm comfortable calling it art because I see that it's art, and art allows for so much, like poetry, analysis, just, you know, shooting from the hip. And whatever it is, it's something you bring into the world from your heart, and a form of grounding what you feel in your heart. And I've always had this conflict and even arguments with people around, because I read tarot cards, right? That's part of my background. And there's this place where tarot cards meet the Bible and Christians, and it's just like this electricity. It doesn't mix. It's like some people think it's oil and water, and here I am, and I'm like, well, maybe it's like how you get to God, you know. You know, so to meet this set of people, and I can feel it's a number of collectives. It's not just one collective. It's a number of collectives, and to just meet these people where it's as if all of these things that I love that are separate, the poetry, the word analysis, the music, the intuition, the love of God, it's like all these parts of me that I thought were so separate. It's like this group of people who all love exactly the same stuff, which is crazy.
Sure.
You mute? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
The
it's been a beautiful experience. It's hard to explain. That's why I appreciated your intro. It's really hard to describe, and it's every day it's unfolding. Every
yeah,
day it takes trust, but
yeah.
I feel like I went through some kind of trust boot camp already.
This this intersection there, the tarot Bible, that electricity you're describing, and the audience that you are intuiting, that are receiving and hearing what you're putting out, that's super interesting territory. Maybe maybe um tell us a bit about your story, just as much as you want to share, but how you come to the point of, you said it was quite a specific moment that pyramid energy started. So how you come to that point that you decide, or I'm assuming it was maybe like releasing the first material, um, and then what that has meant for you in terms of the process that brought you to pyramid energy. So you spoke about that difference between healing and art, and that shift into understanding understanding yourself more in the frame of an artist. But um, as much as you want to share the story that brought you to the point of pyramid energy, and then what that does to your story.
Okay. So I'd say this part of my story, I mean, it probably started the day I was born, let's be honest. But the part that I'll talk about is, let's say from 2019, that's when my career started changing. I was still, so my background, I come from a property development background. So very far from where we are now. Never to return, to be honest, unless in my own personal capacity. But that was around the time I was retrenched from a job, and that's when I first got the sense that life was changing. So growing up, I mean, I'm an Aquarius, so I was always somewhat like fairy minded, you know, in my own world. but it gradually started to sort of conform towards what society expects of a person. And that informed my career choice and everything. Lots more to that story, but not really relevant for this topic. And yeah, so 2019 was when I decided, I feel like exploring some spiritual stuff. I had seen a psychic, and a psychic told me, shame she's passed. Her name was Olive, a very special woman. She was in Craig Hall, and she told me that I'm a healer. So that was the first time I heard that. And I just remember like I think that I don't remember if that was 2017 or 2019, but it's like my heart opened, my world opened, because I'd never been able to like figure out how this trajectory of property was going to take me to where I wanted to be. I couldn't figure that out. And so like my life opened when she said that to me. And she's the one who told me I should look at oracle cards. And she said not tarot cards, and she said oracle cards. So I got my first deck. And so my journey with leaning into my intuition started with the cards. And that was mainly 2019. I did a Reiki course, which also opened me up to understanding solar energy and how the chakras work. It was like literally a half-day course. So it was quick, but it had quite an effect on me. And so I started to sort of channel the energy through my heart into my hands when using the cards. And then over time, the journey of the cards kind of evolved, and I realized that even during the shuffling, which is a form of meditation, even just during the shuffling, messages started coming through. So it's almost like intuitively I could sort of, this is after a long time of playing with my cards, obviously, because the first part, there's a lot of questioning and bridging the gap between like your intuition and your questioning mind and all of that. So then at the same time, also 2019, I started writing a lot of notes into the notes of my phone. I mean, the notes of my phone is a mess. It's a huge mess. So I just use the search function to find stuff. But that's when I started writing. And I'd find myself writing like long things, like I'd get huge downloads of just stuff I want to create, but it never made sense. It never, and I didn't have the context. I just had this information, and I had this idea that I did write down in 2019. I remember I was in hospital, actually. I had just been diagnosed with high blood pressure. And I mean, I had an overactive pulse. I was overweight. I obviously anxiety, depression. There was so much going on. But I wrote these notes about this room, this place where people can come together. And it's going to be like gender neutral is what I called it. It's going to be a meditation space. It's going to, welcoming lots of stuff across different cultures and traditions will apply. And it was like, I mean, to my family as well, it looked like this lofty idea. and to myself sometimes. And so for a long time, I tried to figure out what that thing is, and then I started doing tarot card reading as a service. And what was interesting was that I would use my Instagram to advertise it. And it was tricky because I was advertising to a lot of people that I knew. And so there was always this discomfort around, firstly, socially, that dynamic.
Yeah.
About it was that dynamic. And but then after doing a few readings, I started to realize that these readings are strong. And the thing with tarot and any I don't want to call it a healing service, is that I am privy to the energy that comes through in the reading. And I'm not that kind of tarot reader who will tell you, like, tarot card reader who'll tell you this is what's happening in your life, this is who you must this is, I'm not like, I don't give facts. I don't give facts. And I know a lot of people are gifted in giving facts, but I always found it strange that my readings, I actually found them quite depressing. I found they were so serious, and I'd speak to my guides like, why does everyone else get to talk about all this fun stuff, and I have to talk about what's happening in your mind and what you're doing wrong with your life? And so after some time, I started just posting reels on Instagram instead of doing readings, because I also wasn't getting a lot of readings. But what I noticed about the readings that I would get to do for people, they were very timely. So what would happen is that, let's say like once every 3 or 4 months, I'd get an order for a reading, and then I'd be able to see how I've progressed. So it's almost like the purpose of those readings was to show me my progress. It was never based on an advert I'd done. So I knew that those were always divinely sent to me to show me something. And I also struggled a lot with how to cost them. And this is relevant, I'll explain why. I struggled with how to cost them because a lot of the people who need the information that I give in those readings can't afford them. And so I gained this understanding that my readings, my work is for it somehow I need to be able to access a lot of people with it. And that's also why it's not very fact-based and context-based. It's because it's energetic and it can reach many people with and hopefully at not a high cost, like something accessible. So then last year I went through like a personal like social media life crisis, so many things, and I ended up in isolation. Lots of changes in my personal life as well, of course, so mainly guided by that. But I just decided, you know what, I can't actually deal with the world right now. I need to deal with my life, I need to deal with myself, and I need to heal. And so then I retreated into my own world. Obviously I've got 2 children, so there's not that much retreating. It's just that I just decided to, focus on me. And that's when the most intense of my healing began. And because there were so many things in my physical world that I felt were falling apart, that's when I was trained on the art of surrender, basically. That's when I learned surrender. And that's when I learned what miracles are. And that's also when I learned that you cannot convince someone that miracles are possible. You can't. You'll never convince someone that a miracle is possible. And perhaps not everyone needs a miracle. I've seen many miracles happen in my life. And through that, I felt that's when I also even retreated even further away from, let's say, social media, because I felt like there's some stuff I can't explain here, and I want to get to the heart of the matter. So I continued to write a lot again. And then in February this year, the year started. Oh, wait. I also then needed work. I needed work. That's one of the miracles that I saw happen. I was on Instagram, on Facebook, and a friend of mine posted something saying, we've got some transcription work over the holiday. Anyone want to do this? And it's anyone interested in the mental health space? And I was like, yes, me. So I got the work, and when I got into the work, it's a global organization that basically does interviews similar to this, not similar exactly, but interviews like this, and basically focused on the global expansion of consciousness. So I felt like I just landed. Personally, I felt like I'd landed in honey, because I got to see this content on topics that I've basically been self-teaching on for so long.
Wow.
Names to stuff like processes. And it was also through that I realized, because they've got, and I'm not boasting here, I'm just telling you the truth.
Yeah.
They've got various people in various areas But I realized that all of these things have been happening in me internally. And I think that's when I started to make peace with that I will learn more. I kind of gave myself a stamp of approval on this tension that I've always had around being formally trained on anything. There's always that, like, why don't you do this course and get certified in that? I mean, I ran away from so many people making those suggestions for me because none of that ever resonated, because I get bored. So like, if I do one course and then you call me this, I then what? Then if I want to change, like it could change in 3 days. And that's what it's been like for me. It like changes, and then like I'm on to the next thing. And now from 2019 to 2024, so this is 5 years later, and I'm a completely different person. Through the tarot card reading, healing my mind and my heart, being able to put that into words, through, I mean, my body healed naturally through this process. My body just, and that's why I also believe now, like, your body is your temple. And you look after it by making sure that whatever you put into it, whether that's your mind or your heart, you know, through boundaries, whatever it is, that has to, your body is a sacred space, and it's yours to make beautiful. And you don't make it beautiful by, you can, I mean, people exercise, I can't stand exercising. That's just personal. That's just personal. But I believe your body listens when you feed your heart and your mind with the right stuff, because then your spirit supports you, and you're able to move forward like that. So then in February, I started getting these downloads. I had a few visions. They showed me a few visions of my future. Like, I would just be lying in bed at night, and next thing I could, like, it's this weird vision I had of myself standing somewhere and this crowd in the dark cheering me on. That was in February, and I've never actually shared that. And I didn't understand. I'm like, where are all these people gonna come from? But at the same time, I also had a whole lot of notes around the Sphinx and pyramids, and the number 3 and the number 4, and things that we want and things that we need and things we're going to achieve. And there was just these notes again. It like kind of reminded me of 2019. And then one day I was at home as usual, and what would happen a lot to me is that my body would pick up on energy, right? And I'd go through all those emotions. So often I'd have to do the sifting. Like, if I felt a bit depressed or anxious on a day, I'd have to sift, like, is this my energy? Or is this an external energy? So it's like three sections it could come from. It could be me, it could be someone in my life, or it could be a collective. So I was constantly in this filtering process, which required me to become very, very self-aware. And the one day I was processing something, realizing this is mine, but it's also other people. So I sort of did a meditation, kind of just sitting, breathing, nothing complicated, just breathing. And I did a bit of tarot card reading, because that's what I would do. So I would notice how I'm feeling, and then I would lay my cards out, and the cards would explain the feeling to me in words. And when I finished that session, I was like, let me record this, because I feel like I'm in a flow. So I recorded it. And when I was done, I was like, I need to share this. I need to share this. Where must I share it? I was like, Instagram, no, it won't work there. And then I decided to share it on YouTube. And I tried a YouTube channel years ago. It never worked, not to my satisfaction. I had like 20 subscribers. It was high effort, and it was just not true to me. And I was like, okay, so now the visuals, like, what is it going to look like? And then I kind of remembered advice my friend gave me last year. She's also a tarot card reader. And she said, one day when you do your work, when you're ready, you're going to somewhat fall back on things about other channels that you love. So all the channels that you absolutely love, you're going to sort of create one with all those things.
Mm.
And so I took one of those ideas and I was like, okay, black and white, because I also remembered my other notes from way back. I was like, black and white. And then I had these pyramid notes and I was like, I didn't know how the heart, mind, spirit healing kind of factored into this thing that I just recorded, but I was like, it's all I've got. So I was like, okay. And then I tried an AI tool to like design some kind of visual for a logo. And then I stopped because I was like, this is taking too long. And I ended up just black and white, a triangle. And I tried a few names around the term pyramid, and then I landed on pyramid energy. And I just posted all in the same morning. And then what happened with that video afterwards, I never felt called to like replicate that kind of video, but started like sharing some other stuff. A few weeks later, my aunt passed away, my late dad's sister, and there were a lot of questions around, you know, she used to look after her granddaughter and how death is explained to children. I started like asking myself all these things, and I started getting downloads and also this process through her funeral. We were at church, and when they were reading, what do they call it? Last rites? What do they call it?
Not sure.
I think it's called last rites. I stand to be corrected, but
Possibly
it's,
it rings a bell, yeah.
yeah, and I could feel the energy in the room like moving forward as they were reading last rites. And so I started like posting just my speaking these words that I've come up with, you know, and I started allowing pyramid energy to just be that, a place where I share my downloads. So I started doing that. Then what I noticed, because I can see the analytics behind the channel. I noticed because that first video was basically about creators creating something. And I know the back of all this is manifestation, but creators creating something and this thing, basically how to usher it into the world, one of the blocks to ushering it into the world. And what would happen is that like a few weeks in, so that video went and it like gained some traction and then it went quiet. And then a few weeks in, it kind of like woke up again and peaked out of nowhere. It just, and I watched it and I remember talking about it like, this video is doing better than all the other ones I've been posting since. And I didn't understand why. And then I think then the biggest one after that was the return of Christ consciousness. And that video, I mean, that also sent me into a little mini crisis because because I had a lot of Christians in the room, which is very intimidating because I had to, again, it's that electricity. I had to like kind of figure out, because I know where my worlds meet in terms of as a child of God and then as a tarot card reader, and a chakra bunny, I suppose. and I kind of realized that that video also taught me to kind of take a step back. Maybe that was like a once off, but I realized that no, if all of these people have kind of arrived at the same place in a similar way, and they all, pretty much all of them, are creating something and trying to figure out how to usher it into the world. And one of the notes that I had, that I'd written down around February and March, they told me what my purpose is. They told me, I'm trying to remember exactly the words of my purpose. I know I should know it at the tip of my tongue, but I don't always remember. But it's to bring, to be a messenger of, let me just see, give me 1 second. My search is very quick.
All good.
To be a messenger. No, where is it? You were sent, it's my notes say here, because I'd wake up in the middle of the night and they'd give me words. So they would type the words. It's like a black screen where they type words and then they'd erase some of them and retype. So I started getting used to that. And they said, my purpose is you were sent as a messenger to deliver messages of hope, inspiration, and peace. And it said here, with manifestation at the core. And
Epic.
it's yeah, it's crazy. And at the time around March, I also watched Moses, the story of Moses. And that I don't know whether to call it a movie or a documentary or whatever, but that pulled a huge number on me because I watched it and I could identify with Moses. And I was just like, this is overwhelming. It's a huge responsibility. I mean, now in hindsight, I realize that that's why these stories exist, because these people represent qualities and missions, and we're able to learn a lot from that. So it's not to intimidate you to say, oh, you think you're Moses. It's not that. Oh, you think you're Jesus. It's not that. It's that if you can identify with this character and this, I mean, it's a gift, then there's a lot more to be learned around it. And so that's when I realized to an extent, okay, so all the healing is actually valid, because I realized I have the courage, and this was also part of my notes and with the Sphinx and all that I have the courage to walk this path. And I knew that pyramid energy was also going to be proof that it's real and that it's possible. And so, yeah, here we are. And then looking back at all the content, I realized after the return of Christ consciousness, I realized all of the content that I was creating was basically the journey. It was all a journey. It was all a journey. So I have people who go back to the beginning and watch all the videos from the beginning. Because, you know, sometimes people just pop into a channel and leave and but it's like it's almost like a book. It's just not organized that way. So I don't even know where we're going. I don't even know where we're going, but this is where we are, and I have enough proof now to trust each step as it's delivered to me, each instruction. And there's always new lessons. People get tired of always having new lessons to, like, things to deal with. Thought I was done here, but we're not done. We're never done. We're never done. And I really look forward to tomorrow.
Hope. That's hope. Yeah. Messenger of hope. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. That was beautiful.
Long, sorry.
No, it was I really appreciated that. There's so many elements there that resonated, that I would like to pick up on. Um, the your story as like as a model, like I think it's happening to a lot of people. There's this work happening in the background. It's like hard to articulate. It doesn't quite have a shape, but there's notes going that way. There's this creative impulse that way, and like this and then it's process of breaking ground, and that finding the context in which it is relevant to the social benefit of the work that one is involved in, and the creative process of getting there, and this real sense in your process of it being really organic. It's not under it's not strictly under one institutional body. It's almost like with the kind of technology at our fingertips, it's really hard to have that kind of process anymore. Like we have to adapt to a new environment, and it creates stories like the ones that you are reporting. Like it's because there's this influence, there's that influence, and it's not just a case of like, okay, I get accredited there, and then that's like where I fit.
Yeah,
So this space is
the box.
it's incredibly interesting. There 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 was a piece there around the, okay, let's just see, because of how much, just try to see what's perhaps the best the best direction. Um, that piece around the funeral is very interesting. So the, a godfather of mine was murdered last year around this time. It may actually be within a few days of today. Um, I don't have the exact date. Uh, Now recorded as stats in the farm murders. So we went to that funeral, and in in that funeral something, it's there was the sense of like the way that you're reporting your feeling of the congregation. You have a real embodied sense of the congregation and its energy, if we speak its energy, the energy of the congregation and its direction, and there's movement in it. Then you also intuiting and feeling kind of uh lax or direction, or like the thing when you,
I think it was actually the the portal that pulls a spirit that's on earth out of the earth into the other realm.
ah
That's what I feel. I think I felt that pressure. I actually at some point felt dizzy. I was standing and I kept leaning forward as if there's an energy that's pushing something out out of the room, out of the
sure,
church into
sure,
onto the other side. Not so much the congregation, but the energy with the
ah
priest reading rites. It was pushing, it was it was ushering her soul out
ah
of here.
I'm with you. um yeah, it's that the as the rites are being read, and the like I guess why I was saying congregation is like you there in the congregation feeling where everybody is attending, and it's happening with the priest reading the rites, and like you're feeling the movement of that, um, which is just it's a skill that is developed, that um, so so that le- there's an element that when, so let's say someone is like to the right, is disrupting affairs, like they're talking, or it's creating like a hole in that movement. Everybody's trying to do something together. The priest is there at the middle doing the thing, and then there's someone there that's not paying attention, facing someone else, and then maybe even like being actively disruptive. No one else in the congregation notices that person being a disruption, but you notice. Now you noticing, you are responsible also, because you notice it, you're responsible for that hole, for that lack. It's that kind of dynamic that the holy comes in Holy Cow. That that
Uh-huh.
that kind of thing. So at this funeral, um, and there's something like that occurring, and now I'm feeling that like heart, that duk, 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 call to responsibility, and
Mm.
and and I don't know how to be with that. Um, and so I like follow the impulse, but I don't do it skillfully. Like it's a mess. I get too involved in trying to interpret the thing that I'm being called to do, and then it just it just comes out
It's
to like a, say again,
it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming.
overwhelming.
And it's like trying to figure out what your role in the whole thing is.
Yeah.
Um I've found it really helps to pause on interpretation and to just let it all come out in its purity. And so if
Yeah.
that means, let's say you're writing something down, I don't know what your process is as you conceptualizing, but let's say it is that you're writing something down. If that's all you have, then share that and
Mm.
just be comfortable being in the present moment. A lot of the stuff that I did do, that I have done on pyramid energy, some of it has literally been stuff I wrote in the middle of the night, because I won't wake up in the middle of the night and record. I'll write and then read it, like read it out while recording the next day. And some of it was a bit more off the cuff. And you'll find your sweet spot. It's just, I think, again, a matter of trust and not trying to jump ahead. It happened to me many times where, and I still do it. I still do it where you jump ahead and and even if you do, that's also fine. It's just like, it's art. It's art, you know, the artist doesn't, I don't even think artists throw away like their less developed work. It's part of the process.
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
part of the story. And
And
and and not every piece is a masterpiece. So you'll have the ones that, you know, like mark pivotal times in your journey, and the ones that were like more painful parts that some you keep to yourself, but just be in the present moment.
yeah. Yeah. Even when you're sharing in this process of the videos that have come through pyramid energy, like the sense that they're all pointing towards, and in that instance, you're like the return to Christ consciousness was a big event in that whole process. And I completely agree. It's often like that sense of the lack or the incompletion, because it's just getting rid of perfection, and then the imperfection like compels the next work. It's like this, it's the seed of the next work, and then it kind of grows from that, like filling that place where there was something that was like not quite, or like some, and so it's a mistake, something you'd like to like, and then the creative impulse is like, no, we can keep unraveling that,
Keep on. And
whatever.
you know, on YouTube, there are actually a lot of artists who have their YouTube channel, and then they have a Patreon. And what they do on Patreon is that they allow their biggest fans to support them there. And what they put on there, they'll put like backstage content, unedited content, and all of that, because that's also valuable. There's value in the background and the drafts. I'd pretty much say there's value in the process. It's not all about the end product. And I
Yeah.
think that's what's helped me, because I never thought I'd share myself. I mean, pyramid energy it's a very vulnerable space, you know. But I realized that that's what's healing for me and for other people. Because a lot of us have been painted as oversensitive and overthinkers and analyzing too much and all of those labels. And I realize now that's the beauty, the fact that I overthink, because I can't stop thinking about this thing. There's something here. I knew there was something here. And so I feel like the overthinker and the overfeeler is validated, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I, I I
Yeah.
love I love that image of it's like the the closer to the artist, the messier it is. And then there's
Yes.
even then that's where like a paywall can be put. Um
Yes.
uh
Yes.
Properly so, because now it's like you're really stepping, there's proximity now.
Yeah.
Now to raw.
So interestingly enough, I recently started my Patreon, and on the channel through the comments, I mean, the comments section on its own is like an entire experience. And I've had to confront that challenge around whether I'm allowed to have paid content or not. Okay, because now the whole Christian thing comes up again. And my responsibility as someone who speaks about God to do everything for free, you know? But the thing is, what's been very interesting is it's exactly what you just said now. A lot of the stuff I share on Patreon, I'm finding is extremely personal because it's actually content it's almost by spirit directed at me for something I'm currently going through and about to walk through. And that is something that I'd like shared for people that are going through exactly the same point that I'm at now. And so that payment is actually like to protect me as well. It is much closer to me. And I realized just this last week, I realized, you know, even being a generous person and a very open person, there are times where I can just do things the way I'm doing them. And I suppose that's everything. And this is just, there's no exception here. I don't consult with anyone as I'm writing my poetry. And so I won't consult anyone as I put another video on the side and not on the stairs of City Hall. You know, but that's the thing, because I wanted to, the reason I didn't get distracted. I wanted to pull out a note that I had.
Sure.
I wrote this on the 20th of April in my notes, and it said, "Where is the promised land and how do we get there?" And I was like, because they were all,
Sorry,
they
sorry.
were, stop it. And I was like, oh my goodness, because this took me back to Moses. And I also feel like this audience at Pyramid Energy, other than their art, it's like, I almost feel like a whole lot of us social rejects, if I can put it that way. It's a terrible word to use. I don't like using that word, but I can feel it. And it's like a process to redemption. And when I say rejection, I mean, I think a lot of us have experienced that being spat out by the ordinary structures that people usually find stability through, and finding our way towards creating something that comes from it, born of a dream and born from the heart, to actually create it, something that can actually look after you in the future. I mean, what a dream to make money from your art, whatever that is, and the thing you love, and for you to do that every day. I mean, I think that's ultimately the dream of life. And a lot of people don't believe in that it's possible. They don't believe that it's, they'll almost convince you that you don't deserve it, and that the risks you're taking are not worth it. There are so many things, and that's this line is it's that, and I don't want to. I almost want, I want to talk about Moses, but I don't want to liken it too much to the actual biblical story. But it's a leading of people out of this mental prison into this place that is better, that is promised. And basically leading people out of there. And this, because these notes really scared me as well. They really scared me, but so far, just looking at the pyramid energy journey, I feel like even if I close the page down today, I feel like it's done its job. Not that I will close it down. I mean, I almost did a few weeks ago. I almost freaked out and ran away. But I realized that it's just about breathing and again, trusting that the next steps will be provided as you need them.
Did you say it's just about breathing? Breathing. Like it's crazy that like metabolizing. It's like whoa, okay, I've been vulnerable and this is intense and like spirits just breathe.
Yeah,
That
just breathe.
that strength, like this thing of the power and responsibility, like when those channels are opened and more charge is put towards you, there's the need to then integrate, and breath is that way in which it is integrated. It's the metabolizing, and now there's like a higher resonance or you can be stable with more charge without.
Yes. And imagine, like, you know, the anxiety we deal with. It's almost like training ground because, you know, like if you've ever had an anxiety attack, it's like you can't breathe. And the how to get out of it is actually through the process of breathing. It's because, and also just dealing with too much coming at you at the same time. But then now on the other side, it's like this anxiety is born of my dream. It's not life circumstances or anything else. It's like all this responsibility, like you're saying, and as it's coming in, there's this influx of responsibility, but also this moment where you can remember that it's the breath of life, you know. It's that's the breath is what life is. The breath comes from God. The responsibility comes from God. And if you just breathe, everything will be fine. Don't worry about what's going to happen 5 minutes from now, because the next steps are actually also in the breath. Everything's in the breath. And when
Beautiful.
there's no breath, that's a different life, not this physical one. So you don't have to worry. As long as you're breathing, you're good.
Yeah.
Truly, if you're breathing, you're good.
Wow. Sure. Oh man. Yeah, this is great. Um, the the breath of life, the bread of life. You know, like that part that you shared about this feeling of exclusion and that it always like puts me in mind of that um who Jesus came for, like who Christ came for. He didn't like he came for the excluded. He came for the people at the lowest. Like he came for the people at the bottom, like the poor, the people really stuck. Like that's the place that he came. It's always offensive. It's always offensive. It's like no. It's in the exile. Like it's there where it is. And then there's this element of like I can't remember where in scripture it is, but it's a like the first will be last and the last will be first. So it's this insistent reminder to like if you feel too secure in like this is my institution and we are definitely following the word to the T, but it's like but where did it happen? Like it in the exclusion in the exile, okay, but if we just like uh remembering that is always it always vivifies, it gives me life. Um this 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 that piece. Okay. So the question that I want to come to is this development of your understanding of the guide or the guides in your process. So you first start playing with tarot, which means you engaging this like you're engaging synchronicity, the apparently irrational, the coincidental, um, and you're developing like a skillfulness in relation to that, which is hard to articulate, and we'll reach towards like intuition to say what it is. What then develops is the sense that the information is coming from somewhere. And then like the guides are uh, giving information, so they have a certain plan, and then they can give purpose also. You've come to your purpose. So to 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 get to that question, I'll finish the funeral piece. I ended up acting out in like a little bit of a messy way. It was ambiguous and it like didn't land. So my uncle comes to me and he says, What you were trying to do is you're trying to prophesy. So please read this book and make sure that the spirits you're entertaining are from God." So and I was like, "Okay, uncle, I will read this book because you've given it to me." I read it, and that was the beginning of the process of then coming to Christ. Um, the It was the Spiritual Man by Watchman Nee. But that process was like a year and a bit, moving through that text.
Spiritual man.
Spiritual Man.
I just want to write that down for myself.
Watchman Nee, he was a Chinese guy. Um, uh, I think he was martyred. Beginning of the 20th century. But yeah, it's like it's a there's a transmission in that book. Oh, it's actually, this is another kind of uh, synchronous element of this conversation, is that like the style of that book. It's very much this creative rawness. He's just like got something to say, and he uses the means that are available to him, and he says it. And then we have that, I suppose, like 100 and so years ago.
I mean, for so long, I probably wanted to write a book and all that. And it's like, where do you begin? Where do you start? And then I thought podcast, and I'm like, podcasts need structure. You know, and then you end up filling 70% of the actual podcast episode with intro and like outro and all this stuff. And it's just, sometimes it's, and I actually think I will do that. I will take my YouTube content and strip the words out of it and make a book out of it, or create a poetry book out of it. I'll see. But at least for now, I'm moving, I'm doing, and not thinking about what I'm gonna do.
Beautiful. That was a question I had even before the conversation, and it like has to do with the form. But I mean that the form, the like do you voice note your friends a lot?
Oh, Daniel, sorry, I have to just move my garden office into the sun. If you can just give me a second.
Cool, cool.
Do I voice note my friends a lot? How many times have I spoken to my friends and had conversations through voice notes and wished I could export them and create a podcast out of them? So many times, and lots, even like last night, so many. I have voice note friends. Voice notes are my love language.
Yeah.
And the longer the better. The longer the better.
Sure, sure. And that's what I'm hearing in terms of your the content in pyramid energy and that immediacy. Like it's immediately into it, and it's in the flow of things. It's alive. Like it's a living thing that, and then it's recorded, and then we can share that recorded thing. It's epic. And that's the like technology that's kind of that's before us, that we have.
Sometimes I don't even greet. Sometimes I don't even greet because I don't want to get lost in the greeting. I just launch. I just launch.
The word that comes to mind is like a dispatch. It's dispatched. You like you're in the field and you're like, okay, listen.
Copy. You copy pyramid energy. Do you copy? Roger that.
Do it. Trust the impulse. Trust it. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah. That's how it feels. Yeah.
Sure. That's um okay, so the direction of my question is towards the guides. But I just want to check
Yes.
in with you in terms of your time, how you're doing, and
I'm good for time.
cool. So then that yeah, well then I guess the question is simple. Like how is your thinking about the guides developed, and do you ever like contemplate um them, or yeah, like how is your thinking around it? How has that moved through time? And yeah.
So, you know, in the South African context, especially with African tradition and all of that, there's quite a connection to our ancestors. And so that's where I started. I found it relatable. I also believe that's a huge reason why it's there, because again, on the journey to, I mean, as an intuitive, I pretty much do believe that I don't know what's beyond, but to channel information through Christ consciousness is quite I'd call it an aspiration. Okay. So anything that happens along the way that gets you closer to that, I believe is valid. So for me, I lost my dad in 2017. And it was the day that he died that that was my first experience with the energy of a person I know in the room, but most certainly not in the body.
Sure.
That was the first time I could feel him, because you know I'm familiar with my dad. So in that moment, just after he passed, we were all in the hospital room and he was in the room, but when I was looking at where his body was, he wasn't in there. I could feel that. So that was my first encounter of like feeling this energy outside of a person. And I mean, growing up, I was so scared of ghosts. If that's even a thing. I mean, now I'm like, what is a ghost anyway? There's no such thing as a ghost, I don't think. I don't know. It's spirits. And they live among us. They're here. They're everywhere. You can't, even on the road, not just in dark houses. They are everywhere. And so that was my dad, I'd say, as the first connection to a guide. And I'd also speak to other healers, and they kind of taught me how to connect to my ancestors. I never had a full understanding of that because I had a whole lot of other ancestor stuff going on that I couldn't explain to anyone. I, like, so I had my dad. I had his side of the family, but also a part of his family that we don't really know very well. But I knew they obviously factored, but I also didn't know, like, it was like it's very name based for me, so accessibility was tough. So I made peace with the fact that I can still have a relationship with them without knowing names and all of that. And so, like, respect for the lineage, respect for my mothers as well. There was a time I couldn't really tell who was what, but I could get a feel, because I'd also interacted with some of them in dreams. So I knew, especially from my dad's side, giants, literally, like giants. So there's that aspect of my blood family lineage as ancestors. And then through some past life regressions, and through knowing myself, I connected with a past life of mine, in North America, Native America. And he was a he, first of all, and he was much more wrinkly than I am now. And he used to be an advisor to a community. And I don't know if money was like a currency was a thing in his time, but he was looked down upon. He wasn't ever fully recognized for his contribution, even though everyone went to him. And I named him Contented Tiger. And that was my Instagram name for a very long time.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Contented Tiger, because my first name means, so it's like these two things kind of came together and made sense for me only this year. My name Gontse means it's an expression of content. And so I found for a long time I was on a search to find my own content and to be content with myself. And my maiden name is Nkwe, which means tiger. And so I created Contented Tiger in 2019. And then I did a past life regression, and I met with this ancestor, or not ancestor. Well, it is an ancestor because it's a past life of mine somehow. I don't know how it finds me in South Africa, but I had an understanding. And he used to walk with about an 11-year-old child. He had an 11-year-old child with him. And he was also buried in a mountain. So for a long time growing up, I had this, it's hard to explain, but it's like this suffocation that I would have during traumatic times in my life. Perhaps my family won't regard these as traumatic, but I remember when I was feeling a certain way, and I'd feel this dense air in my space. Do you know what I mean? Like the air would become dense, and I never understood it until I did that past life regression, because it immediately brought that sensation back. So I believe Contented Tiger was buried alive, essentially, in some kind of a mountain. Because from that time I did that past life regression, I never encountered that suffocation again. And I also realized that it was also his voice that was suffocated, and that's how I felt in my life. So when this all came together for me, I realized that Contented Tiger is actually real. It's not just the name I made up. He existed for a time, returned into my life to help me work through this karma, all the things I mentioned about him, to help me work and heal this karma that I was still carrying, to heal him, to heal myself, and finally able to release him, and accept my name. This all happening at the same time that I'm visited by John the Baptist. And and this is before Jesus. This is before my encounter with Jesus, my first encounter with Jesus. And so making peace with Contented Tiger, making peace with my blood lineage, my family, making peace with John. And then also through my poetry, I was connecting to I connected with William B. Yeats.
Okay.
So he has this poem, The Second Coming, which I never understood fully before. But it came up this one day. It came up, and I recorded a video for Pyramid Energy, where we basically analyze this poem, and then the Sphinx comes up, and like it's like I never understood the poem before. And it just all came together, the meaning of this poem, at least for me. And I'm feeling the energy closing, like coming in at the moment. and that poem, that day that I was analyzing the poem, when I looked at the date, because I went up to actually look him up, William B. Yeats, William Butler Yeats, and it was his birthday. Then I started to gather that, okay, so there are many guides. They can come at any time. Be open to them. I'm a firm believer in light. So I also don't engage in like this introduction before you engage with your guides of please protect me in light. And I'm not undermining it or anything, but and I suppose it's also my encounter with the voice of God, the Holy Spirit, is there's no competing with that. It's just, there's no competing with that. And a part of me also feels like I'm doubtful of the protection of God if I even need to mention that I need this protection now, because I don't just need this protection now while I like record a video. I need this protection as I wake up in the morning, before I've even had my first sip of coffee. I need this protection as I walk to the shower. I've kind of reconciled myself with my guides. We are all, so I often just refer to they.
Yeah.
Or I'll say the Holy Spirit if I feel, depending on how pure the thought feels. Because I mean, some of these guides, they have such a sense of humor. They also love to rip me off. They actually make a lot of fun of me. So they love to rip me off, and some of them are very serious. One of them also comes in to like check whether I'm still doubtful or not. So there's a lot going on all the time.
Wow.
And so I just stay open to what's inspiring me in the moment, and I go with that. Because even the poetry sounds different. It's not like I have a set way of writing poetry, like a structure. There's no structure. Some of it is like boom, 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 boom. And then some of it is like just flow of words. And there are many guides, and I feel privileged to I'm grateful to myself for being committed to the kind of healing that's allowed me to be seen by certain guides as an appropriate conduit for their information.
Sure. I appreciated that. Wow. And Contented Tiger, now you're making the content that makes
Yeah.
content.
It's the content, right? Yeah.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Yates,
And
that's
I like to say contented is a tiger left in peace. So if you continue, don't irritate the tiger. You're not going to end well. So I'm much more gentle now. I'm much more gentle. I don't have a lot of the hang-ups that Contented Tiger had.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. A real release around that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was that kind of reappearance of that theme for us of this that kind of edge condition or that boundaryness, that ambiguity, this advisory role, but also rejected, but then like rejected, but lent on, like relied on, but somehow outside this ambiguous like relationship to this like
And
out, yeah,
it's tricky territory, you know, because we have all these relationships, and then you become this person, and then you have to kind of find your way into redefining what it means to be a friend. What does it actually mean to be a friend?
yo,
It's yeah. There are so many things even still to be reconciled. To be true to oneself while being true to the people in your life as well, by showing up honestly, whatever that means in that moment, whatever it means for that time. And I've also become comfortable also just accepting and sharing with the people in my life that I don't know what's coming tomorrow, and I don't know, this is where I am today. Whatever contract you feel we've signed, this is what's happening on my end. This is what's happening on my end. And so I just want to let you know, because besides the fact that I'm not ready to share what I believe the terms are, this is where I am, and I think it's right for you to know where I am, and maybe I don't have all the answers, but this is where I am. This is my truth. This is my truth, and this is what I can offer of myself. This is what I can't offer of myself. And let's hear what are your expectations. And it's not such a formal discussion.
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's more like bringing to the surface the things that are happening, the things that are happening, irrespective of whether we ignore it or not, and allowing myself to, I suppose, make known my evolving needs. I suppose, to be able to show up. And I think that's key, is that if I value a relationship, I need to share with you what it is I need in order for me to actually show up for you, rather than pretend, because I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't pretend, and I don't know how to explain in your language, let's say, why I'm not the same person as last week. But we're here now. We're here. This is what it is. You know, I ran into, I was with a friend not too long ago, and she was like, "Oh, did you bring your cards?" And I'm like, "Actually, I don't read cards anymore." She was like, "What?" You know? And then
Yeah.
recently I was like, "Hey, I read cards again." I don't know. Maybe next week I won't again. I don't know, go with the flow.
Yeah, sure, sure, sure.
Go with the flow. And then, sorry, on the guides,
Mm,
the moon became a guide for me along the
mm,
way. So um along the tarot card reading, I also started reading astrology charts. And not like an astrologer where they know how to draw all those things. I just Google on this website called AstroSeek. I would Google AstroSeek and then put in the person's birth details. And somehow I realized that when it's I can't read it fully when it's written like Aquarius, like Mercury in Aquarius, but like it has to be Mercury in, and then the Aquarius has to be the symbol. So when all those symbols are listed, I'm able to kind of read the chart
mm,
and personality and the blocks and all of that. And through that, I started moving through the monthly cycles, the moon cycles, and kind of getting a sense of what's happening with everyone's energy and how people are reacting to it. And I did a lot of my healing of my feminine through the moon.
mm,
And I
mm,
found it very validating in terms of my feelings of safety and my emotions, my ability to hear and feel my emotions as they move through the new moon, the full moon, all of that, and the various transits. And then in the middle of pyramid energy, something so strange, the strangest thing happened where I was getting really comfortable putting this into words and sharing it with everyone. But then one day I put my cards, I laid them out in front of me and I couldn't read them. No information was coming in. It was like,
mm,
they're cards, so there's still technically something you can read, but there was like all the depth was gone. It was like,
yeah.
could read today and today couldn't read it. And at the same time, I was struggling because I was trying to transmute all this energy I was feeling. My body was struggling with this feeling in my heart. My heart was burning from all these solar surges. It was like my heart was being microwaved. So I
Mm,
needed to understand what exactly was happening in my heart, and the cards were not telling me.
ah,
And then I then started to go into these steps that I used to follow for surrender, where it's like, okay, just sink into your emotions. Just allow yourself to sink into your emotions. And I heard no. I heard no. I
yeah.
don't, we're not doing that.
We're not
So
doing we're not doing
I
the
was
cards, or
not,
we're not going into emotions.
we're not sinking into our
Uh,
emotions. We're not doing that. So no cards, no cards, no sinking into emotions. I want you to listen to me now. It was very bossy, very bossy. And it was scary. And I remember that day almost like observing myself from another end, because I was crying, I was laughing, I was like, what's going on here? I was shocked. It was all these emotions. And I remember looking at myself like, I'm so glad you're by yourself right now, because if anyone else would see you, they'd say you're crazy. This is what madness looks like, is what I remember thinking. Because all these things it was like my body was shaking out all these emotions that it's been feeling for so long.
mm,
And I don't remember the instruction exactly, but I remember basically they told me, no, we're not surrendering. You think you know everything.
mm,
And now I'm here to tell you that you don't know anything. You don't know anything. You know nothing. They basically told me that I don't know anything. And so that's when I started to look into Socrates and this not knowing,
mm,
and leaning into that and realizing, and just through processing that, realizing that I was to meet the masculine as a start. Now realizing the masculine is like a precursor to God, you know, and being able to hear God, because also if you're overly emotional, you won't hear God. Required to hear God, you need balance. You need to be at the balance. And so I needed to interact with that masculine energy, which actually came in to reassure me that I'm protected, that it's going to teach me, it's going to create more structure in my life, and that it was like a new era. It like came in to introduce a new era, but it required me to be willing to forget everything I know, all the terminology I have for stuff, all the labels I have for stuff, all the stuff I've been told, all the stuff I think I've gathered, all my learnings that I've got like a whole cupboard full of, to be willing to let go of all of that, to be able to hear something new that is true.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the sun, as opposed to the moon, was now speaking to me. And the sun has a different, I mean, I learned the language of the moon. The moon is so gentle and so mysterious and so dark. The sun is straight. The sun is straight, direct, cannot be ignored. If you ignore the sun, you get burned. It will burn you. So you can either let it burn you or listen to what it says and use it to your benefit. And so I learned that. And then as I was like finding my balance in that, so literally everything that I was doing in terms of the moon and all of that kind of left me. It was like the interest left. There was no more interest. It was like I had emotions. I could feel them. There was information now, and I was able to interpret the information without it being channeled through my flesh anymore. Good understanding of the emotion, good, but I felt balanced. I felt very balanced. And then that's when I met John and I did some reading, and I was intrigued, but I didn't quite fully understand it until the return of Christ. It's like John is the one who ushered me into that video. You know, through Google. I mean, I almost feel like I was tricked into doing that video, because I was tricked into doing that video, because if they had told me what that video was going to be about, I wouldn't have done that. I thought it was going to be like a quick, guys, apparently someone knows the Bible, and these are the links that I see, and then it just turned a whole other thing. And but it was so because I started to have a different respect for this information that I'm getting and what it actually means, because a lot of people were commenting, you know, people out there have a lot of information. They've done their reading and they've walked their journeys. But before that video, I had to have people comment in the comment section, because at this point, I still don't know who I am, if you know what I mean. I'm like shedding my old life, and I've started pyramid energy, but I'm also very intimidated by what pyramid energy does. Pyramid energy for a time actually became a guide in itself, because I was like, I can't own that. I can't own that. I'm not big enough to put my name on that. Like I had huge reconciling to do. I was very much intimidated by pyramid energy and what it was able to do.
Sure.
It was very difficult for me to, and then I had to do a lot of worthiness work to step into it. Because I knew that Gontse needs to somehow reconcile with pyramid energy. I don't even know what pyramid energy is, but if pyramid energy is going to grow,
just the connections. I'm not sure if it's. Are you hearing me? Connections.
Yeah.
Are you hearing me?
I can hear you. It's just a lag in the.
Yeah. Yours just lagged a bit. Sorry,
Yeah,
I missed the.
Okay, so I'm gonna ignore the. Okay, I think we're much better now. So that was a real tough one for me, because I didn't even know how to. It was almost like I couldn't even use my sense of humor, because pyramid energy felt so serious. It felt so sacred. It felt so pure. That I wasn't sure how to be human in it. And how I managed to do that work was actually through John and through this internal process of baptism and dealing with my name and what it means, and if I'm keeping my name, Gontse, if I'm keeping it, because I almost changed my name. Seriously, I did. I went to the Home Affairs website to actually find out if you can change your name. And what the grounds for changing your name would be, until I reaccepted my name. Found a whole lot of new meaning in my name, and I managed to put Contented Tiger to rest and thank him for everything that he's done. And that allowed me to then say my name into pyramid energy, and then almost allow pyramid energy to not be a spirit, but to be a place. A place where certain things happen. And that helped me a lot, because then that helped me to put my name to it, because, and it's just come from there. Then I had the vision of the earth. And I actually downplay it in the video where I talk about this, the one where I talk about when I saw Jesus. And even when I saw Jesus, it didn't actually totally land on me what it means to meet Jesus. The understanding came with time. The understanding about what it means about where I am in my journey, what it means about how a lot of the things I've judged myself for, I've been judging myself for, not other people judging me. The other people judging me has absolutely no bearing on who I am. And if I'm good enough for Jesus, then I'm good enough for myself. Honestly. But what led me there was the shape. This is going to sound crazy, but I'm going to tell you. I had a vision of the shape of the earth. And it wasn't flat and it wasn't round. And now I'd done so much work to accept the information and the visions in their purity. And I was faced with this now. I was faced with this, well, apparently the earth is not round. And so then I also went through this other crazy thing, and that's when I thought, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this, because that really rocked me fundamentally, until I made comfort with the fact that, okay, I don't actually have to talk about that. I don't need to go into that detail on pyramid energy. I'm not a geography person, and I'm not a NASA person. I don't need to get into that, and there's no poetry in that yet. So let's just leave it. But it's actually next to this shape that I met Jesus. And I made peace that not everything we have been told is true. And we will be showed things that are the truth. But that it's important that one reaches their own truth, not to prove it to others, but to nurture and build your relationship that will lead your life forever. It's literally new life, because we come into this world with no manual. And I feel like this whole process, I mean, we often make jokes about, like, this one guy made a joke, like, sometimes you being me, sometimes you feel like you were just dumped here on earth, and you like shouting out, like, guys, why did you leave me here? Like, what am I supposed to do? and it often feels like that. But I literally just lost my train of thought. It left.
It's funny, like your connection on the screen, it was a little bit jumpy. But it was mostly coming through, sometimes a bit distorted, and then like a moment of clarity, and then it would distort a bit. That the vision of the new earth was next to, or it was with the vision of Jesus. There was that proximity there.
So So it's not as the new earth as such, but I believe that however I saw the earth is something showed to me, not necessarily something I need to talk about or share or explain or justify for that matter. Almost representing a lot of the information that I may get to guide me, and that I can continue to trust the guidance, but that we're thrown onto this earth with no manual. But I now find myself with some form of a manual. I find myself with this manual, and this manual is the Holy Spirit. And it's like a blank book, but each page turned, there'll be something written for me for the next. And I cannot know. I can't flip further and know for sure what's going to come. But I can trust it because it's got me this far. And also when I look back, I'm like, I definitely wouldn't have I can't take the credit for some of the stuff that hasn't fallen apart or that's led me to this point. And so it's like this, I suppose, yes, it is living in the flow, but it's this, the word holiday wants to come to mind. It's like,
there's another lag there. Holiday? Let me check.
Can you hear my voice?
It cut out at holiday. I heard the question. And now I'm being.
I would say, it feels like I'm on holiday.
Holiday time. Holiday time.
Only holiday.
We are being interfered with. Let's check. My connection seems okay. My connection seems.
I think it's me. Give me a second because my screen just paused.
Okay.
Just give me a moment. I'm gonna close my video just to if you could just take down the time maybe for your editing purposes. Give me a sec.
Intentional interruption.
Yes, interruption. And I refilled my water. And thank you for the comfort break. While I was gone, and I don't know what this will mean to you, but while I was gone, they showed me a blue butterfly. And this brings up the idea of transformation and almost the power of transformation when we're open to change. And that it's a natural process that a butterfly goes through. And a butterfly has this beauty about it and this freedom that it lives through. But recognizing that before it even goes into its cocoon, it's this caterpillar that it's prickly and when anyone's looking at the caterpillar, nobody actually pictures the butterfly. Not the butterfly itself that's inside the caterpillar, and not the onlooker, the one observing the caterpillar. The person looking at the caterpillar sees it as prickly with this shell. It's basically a colorful worm, It's a prickly worm. And then it goes into this cocoon. It just knows its time when it needs to go into isolation. It knows the time, and it doesn't know what's coming. It's death. It's death. And but through trusting that process, there is this emergence of this absolutely beautiful butterfly that has freedom and that can fly, and that people, it flies by and it stops for a moment and then it flies away and it's eating.
There's a like one of something that is shining the most. Something that is shining the most. I'm getting my voice back. Clear?
Hmm. Yes.
Shining the most for me from you is this like it's like a character of change, and it's like that's almost like a contradiction, you know? It's like, but it's the willingness for change, or it's like this openness to change. It's like or like a willingness to learn. So there's a contradiction there because it's that's inherently something moving, and then the character we tend to think about is like something like static or but the what I keep getting impressed by is this sense of being changing, like that uh so it's an appropriate image for sure, transformation, butterfly.
Is.
the the the
And that a
other,
butterfly doesn't stay
it doesn't stay, it doesn't stay in the
in the
same
same
place.
place.
The an element that seems that I think is part of that is you were saying a bit earlier how um there was a moment that came where it was like, okay, the way forward here is like you might have to forsake all of that. Like you might have to, like that whole thing might, like that uh, as being someone who's alive, I don't see anything closer to death than that. Like that's what death is, surely. It's like everything I have been up until this point. And that's
Yes.
so like the in the smaller intimations of just like open to little changes and this process of growth, that's even rare. And then the openness to that kind of transformation that is like death to everything that you are and have been is it's just like
Mm.
it's something. Yeah.
It is. And it's the I think it's the ultimate safety that the ultimate security that we've always yearned for, because essentially that's the ability to not just bounce back, but to not ever feel like you're starting from scratch ever again. Because, we often spend so much time talking about the journey that led us to this point. But when that death happens, you're essentially entering a process where it doesn't matter if something came and picked me up today by the head and threw me in the middle of Japan. I know I'll find my way out now. And I know I'm still going to be who I am. Doesn't matter where I am right now. It doesn't matter because it doesn't matter. It was never the story that was carrying me. It was never
Japan,
the story.
Japan and blue butterflies.
I wonder what it is about Japan then.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The yeah, the okay, the one there's one thing for me that it feels, and this is like a more reflective point, I guess, like reflecting on both of us in our context and then in a wider context. And it's things that I'm tracking and having a vague sense of. So a theme that kind of reiterates is this tension between ancestor and Christ or Jesus. For people who go into twice or whatever, it can become a bit of uh, it's a tension. You started by saying there's a certain kind of electricity in this kind of dynamic. Um, and then the yeah, this is the idea that I'm kind of following or pursuing, and it's reflected in my own story. This I think there's something about this manner of relationship to spirits that, so like you're reflecting that sense of after your dad's passing, that sense of his presence in a disembodied, in a non-bodily manner. And then this culture of ancestral worship, which is this like one-to-one relation, like immediate relation with spirits, that is culturally upheld. Like we have space for that. And then this idea um, that because I'm increasingly seeing and understanding my work in the context of what I can just call the kingdom, then I'm understanding that the value that can be given from this dispensation is that immediacy of relation, but then it's about finding the right ancestor. And then I think that that is Jesus. So it's taking that like tutored, cultivated one-to-one relationship, and then that process, and then finding the great ancestor. He's often spoken about like that in kind of syncretic uh, churches that have integrated ancestry to some degree. It's all to say that this domain or this territory, finding it incredibly interesting. This conversation has helped me understand also that like a in through the lens of like development, the way that first relationship with an immediate disembodied personal power, like a spirit, is then like the beginning of a process that can um, take you to Yates.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
You know, I believe maybe this tension will always be there. And I've also seen videos of former, let's call it former sangomas, who then encounter the Holy Spirit, and then they essentially denounce this ancestral worship completely. And so there's this one or the other thing, which I've had to heal for myself. And in healing that for myself, because for me, it's like, I let's say I use cards, right? And so there's this whole thing that will say that Jesus would never want me to read cards. But I'm like, well, well, Jesus found me while I was reading cards, one, and two, Jesus never said I must put down my cards. And three, where is it written that I need to put them down? I don't worship my cards. The only thing I've ever worshipped is God. Worshipped, even in talking to my ancestors. I mean, one of the videos I've shared on Pyramid Energy I think it's called God, Life, and Death. Is that fundamentally God is everything. And so even where Jesus is, I still haven't quite fully placed for myself where Jesus sits. And I'll figure that out for myself. It will come to me. But most certainly, Jesus has been the one to help me to do all the final clearing of myself to make way for myself. Everything else and everyone else that has assisted in my journey either assists through helping me do my art, assists me with my, I suppose, my gifts, because like I come from a family of people who love words and language and all of that, and writing. So that to me feels like these are some of the gifts ancestors provide. They also provide a lot of I believe, let me put it this way, and given where I am now, I don't see myself, and this is no disrespect to anyone, depending on how they see themselves or what they believe, but I don't. I see myself as just as important as my ancestors. We all live in the palm of God's hand. The palm of God's hand, yes. We all live there. My role is to be here in the flesh and to connect with them, to help them to allow them to help me, because as long as I run from them, we cannot achieve what we needed to achieve. I am there assigned, because I'm also there with them, my ancestors, my higher self sits with them. We had an agreement, and I'm the guy that we sent onto earth, and I have a responsibility for the team. My job is to listen, their job is to help, but we are all fulfilling our plan in God.
Mm. Mm.
And so it would feel strange to worship them if I don't worship myself, you know. And they see things I cannot see. They are limited. I'm limited in this life, but apparently, currently, I'm the only one who can do what they're asking me to do here now. So that's the importance. I don't see the need to denounce anything, because if your encounter with Jesus and God is an individual experience, not a shared one, then it allows all the rules that go with it to be shared individually and personally as well. And so I also don't believe that anything is wrong. I actually fundamentally do not believe that any of my desires or my inclinations or the things that I love doing or I find fun, that they can, if they make my heart feel happy, that they are wrong. I don't see it as that. Yes, there are things that my heart has made me do that I realize are not good for me. So I stop doing those things because it doesn't help me, and it sets me back. But something like cards, or whether that's someone who uses bones as a tool or whatever, I don't think that is a barrier to the path through to Christ. It's part of how you even got there. If that's your story, then that's your story, and you can't throw away your past. You can't. The past is very much a part of the present, and your relationship with your guilt and all of that, that's all to be, by the time you do speak to Jesus, you'll and it's strange, because it's like Jesus, for me, Jesus showed up, Jesus held me, but the voice that I heard was not Jesus's voice, it was the voice of the Holy Spirit. So it's like Jesus is that what do you call it? I don't want to use the word go between. But firstly, Jesus catches your attention, right?
Mm.
Then as soon as I saw Jesus, I felt safe, I felt loved, and then I was able to hear this voice that had very affirming, confident words to me. Not judging, a reminder of God's love, a reminder of what fear is and what love is, and to always choose love, and that I'm safe, and that I'm accounted for, and also that I'm ready to hear these things. That God was always there throughout, watching everything. I've not been condemned for anything. I condemn myself. Nothing else. And so almost did again leave my tarot cards, and then I realized they entertain my inner child. So when I feel like putting them out, I can't fight. But they do not give me the same depth that the Holy Spirit does. So it's fun to play, but it's a privilege to hear the Holy Spirit speaking. And there is more information and more relevance in the Holy Spirit than anything for me. So it was never really about anything being wrong, but that perhaps one at some point becomes ready for better and more. So I don't think any of it, there should be no attention. I just wanted to share that a few weeks ago. I actually used an AI tool called Google Gemini, and I asked a question, and I asked it, Google Gemini, what is, amongst the
millennials in South Africa, what is their biggest challenge currently, spiritually, and what other word I use, but what's their current spiritually in terms of life, what's their biggest challenge? And what it told me was that South Africans live in a tension between Christianity and their their traditional cultural spiritual practice. So South Africans, especially millennials, we are actually caught in this tension and need to choose, when in fact both exist. I found that extremely interesting, very enlightening, and I think for me, it's unfortunate how much conditioning has happened and the narrative around what it means to be Christian. I always feel like at some point I went through some anger trying to figure out who do you go to take the word Christian back, because it'd been hijacked. You can't go to the Pope because the Pope doesn't own Christianity. You can't go to the heads of each church because they own Christianity. Christianity thinks it owns Christianity. And here are a whole lot of others of us who Christianity is finding us, but it's not finding us under the same rules that we've been taught. So I don't know. Moving for an age where Christianity can be redefined or accepting, more open, so that the barriers to Christ can fall. Honestly, the traditions that we practice are beautiful. The art of tarot card reading is one of the most beautiful things I've come across. You can write whole stories in tarot. It's cultural, it's part of the history. And I was like, why are we always pushed to choose? And why are we always pushed to choose? Convinced that this is the best choice, and anything that not that choice equals bad. I wish we could be free from that.
Sure. It was coming in and out. I heard everything you were saying, but in some periods there was like a distortion, and then it would come clear, and then there'd be a distortion and it would come clear. It's such an interesting thing that you did, asking that AI tool. It's such an interesting thing that you did, asking that AI tool. I'm getting myself reflected back to me, that question, and I'm in deep agreement as to its answer. You know, this tension between Christ and ancestor, and I think or ancestors. Um, and I think there's a unique resolution to that, in the fact that Jesus is an ancestor, and he's one that he offers adoption. So I play that potential, or that gift, as being in this domain of choice. And this is the thing that is probably like my favorite thing about the Holy Spirit, or about the gospel, is that it is of this nature of free choice. So it's Jesus doesn't want anything besides like just the free willed option of him. It's like anything compelled or anything else. It's really not that. It's a free gift, and it's taken up freely. So it's that relationship that it's a it's the it's the it's it perfects love. It perfects love, because there's nothing about it that is compelling. It he just insists as being choice worthy, and he remains as what he is. And then it's he asks you the question. He's like, this is the as a free gift, you know. And so then it's yeah, that's it's always nice to think on these things. Yeah, that's always nice to think on these things.
Freedom, not imposition.
I missed you there. I missed you there.
I was
Nothing.
saying it's an invitation to freedom, not imposition, not an imposing invitation.
The only thing I got there was not an imposing invitation. The was not an imposing invitation.
It's the invitation to freedom.
We are being thoroughly interrupted.
Thank you.
This can you hear me coming through here?
Wonder now.
Chaos.
Yes, I do.
Can you am I coming through? Yeah. No.
Yes, you are. You are. It's like it's 10 hours.
Big
10
delay.
hours.
A big delay.
It's 10 hours.
I'm loving the
Wait,
chaos.
sorry.
The
Oh,
I'm loving the chaos.
yeah, I think it's
Still nothing.
okay.
I think let me stop here.